This is a HeadGum podcast.
Hello, this is Fake the Nation, where we talk about news, we talk about culture, and where we take a day off, recognizing Labor Day. Folks, I'm your host, Negin Farsad, and I hope you are having a wonderful start to the school year. And we have collected a couple of really great conversations for you to pair with your Labor Day week. First up, we have the wonderful Franchesca, Ramsey, and Conscious Lee talking about fall anxiety.
And next topic. Every year I am overcome with fall anxiety at about this time. We talked about it for the first time last year, it seems like the term is actually now in official use, fall anxiety. But I wanted to revisit the subject because this year it feels worse for me. So to discuss the crushing doldrums of fall anxiety, I'm joined with a wonderful actor, producer, writer, and co-host of the Black History for Real podcast, Franchesca Ramsey. Hello.
Yay, thanks for having me.
I am also joined by the educator and the other co-host of the wonderful podcast, Black History for Real. It is Conscious Lee. Hey, Conscious.
Hey.
So, now, like I said, I experience fall anxiety. It's like we're taping this in late August, and I'm just feeling this like as we move into the school year and all of that stuff. Do either of you experience this feeling?
I have fall anxiety, but not for the reasons that I think most people do. Like, I don't have kids, so I'm not doing the school year. I am mostly self-employed, so I work all year round. Like, I don't have a summer.
Yeah.
For me, my birthday is in the fall. So I start having this feeling of like, oh my God, time slipping away from me. I'm getting older. Like,
yes.
You know, I turned 40 last year, and 40 has been incredible. I love it, but I'm feeling it. Like I have moments where I'm like, the kids these days and my back and the this. Like,
you have told someone to get off your lawn. Is that what's happening right now?
I have fully yelled at a cloud, and I've said back in my day, like I've turned into a walking stereotype. So now that 41 is like right around the corner, I'm like, oh my God, like this year has really flown by. Fall for me means the year is almost over. Time is getting faster. And that's the thing that your parents tell you and your elders tell you, that all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I'm 70. How did that happen?
Yeah. And I still feel like I'm 35,
I don't feel 35, but yes, I do have these moments of like, whoa, time is barreling forward. So I do have that anxiety, and I also, it's for me also election anxiety. Like I'm not ready to rest on my laurels.
I want to get to that. I wanted to get to that because I think that's a big part of my problem this year in particular. Conscious, do you feel fall anxiety?
Yeah, I usually don't, but this fall there is a lot happening. There's a lot happening in front of the scenes, behind the scenes. So anxiety is definitely, almost a gas for me right now at this point. My anxiety is fueling me in more ways than some, good and bad. So my birthday is also in the fall, I guess the winter, December time, when we start getting into the thick of the holidays. And, I just don't know what's going to happen this year. You feel me? So,
yeah, okay. So, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is the elections. And I think, this is the third presidential election that this podcast is experiencing. Listeners, fucking thank you for sticking it through with me. But fuck. And every time I'm like, I'm not going to let these elections take over my life. But probably like you guys, I mean, I'm in an adjacent, I'm sort of like, I'm a comedian who's in a political sort of activist brand and category rather. And so the elections do take over my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do have a lot of election related gigs. I just also personally go out and want to be involved and want to do good and want to be a part of democracy in the best way that I can. So I think I put a lot of pressure on myself. I have a lot of external pressures. It is pressure. On top of I just hate back to school. Now that I have a kid, back to school is so fucking meaningful because I put to take her back. She's got to look cute. I got to look cute for drop off. Like what? And then also she has to do homework and she's only 5. So I'm like, she's not at the age where I can be like, yeah, bitch, go do your own homework. I have to be there. It's I can't, it just feels so much stuff, you know,
Yeah.
that sort of like come, you know, and then by the time you hit winter, whatever, it's calmed down a little bit. You're in a pattern, but like this start, but the election anxiety is real. And I
Yeah.
guess, I don't know if Francesca, for you, is it that like, I mean, like, look, I do only do optimism, and I do optimism that's not like connected to the outcome, because for me, it's like, I can still do things even if the other guy wins.
Yeah.
How do you feel about,
Well,
do you just want it to be over with?
a lot of the stuff that you were saying before you got to the kid really resonated with me. And I think for me, what's been challenging is every election, every election in like the past 4 elections, it feels like suddenly everybody wants to decide like whose shoulders the election should be sitting on. And every election in the past 4 years, it seems like Black women are the ones that everybody wants to say, like, y'all need to do this, y'all need to do that. And so for me, as somebody who, similarly to you, Negin, is at that cross section of like comedy and social justice and identity, I often feel like a lot gets directed at me, and I'm being told like, you should be speaking on this, you should be talking about this, and it's really draining.
It's really draining.
And you know, moment of vulnerability, in recent years, I've really tried to like pivot my brand to be a little bit more comedic and less like outwardly educational, and like, here's what you should do, and let me break down all of these things for you, because of the strain, because it's a lot. I of course have thoughts about politics in the world that we live in. I am not a political analyst. I went to school for graphic design. I'm a professionally stylish person. I do not necessarily always feel qualified to speak on certain things, so I try to, you know, use my platform to highlight other voices. But this time of year, every time an election is on the docket, it feels like you can't win for trying. Like, every single person is screaming at me 24/7. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, I
Yeah.
just want to post a funny thing. I just want to talk about, you know, this pop culture thing, or share that I painted my apartment. And people are like, we need you to speak. And I'm like, I'm not the Associated Press. Like,
What this thing you don't care about it?
what about this thing? And it's really, really,
It's interesting that you
yeah.
mentioned the pressure on Black women. That the pressure that I felt this time around has been about, we talked about uncommitted voters.
Yeah.
You know, there's been organizations that have been like knocking on my door, like, are, you know, can you say that you're an uncommitted voter? And I was just like, this is a huge, there's so many issues, and I, you know, and I have, this is a huge issue for me as well. But
Yeah.
I, you know, like, it's like I am not just one person. Inside me resides a bird of many feathers. Let me mix
Yeah.
so many metaphors to try and
Yeah.
explain.
I mean, I'm
How
sorry,
difficult.
but also like, I'm so thankful I'm not the only one. I know Conscious has dealt with this too, where
Yeah.
you
Gonna
know, I've
do it.
said like, I'm gonna vote, and I've had people be like, I can't believe you're gonna vote. And for me, you know, again, I something that Conscious and I talked about on our show many times is like, our ancestors died for the right for me to vote.
Right,
And so
right,
like,
right.
it feels wild for a stranger on the internet to tell me that like,
Yeah.
I am betraying my morals, person I don't know, because I've chosen that to vote. And so it's like, man, these last few months have just
Have
felt
been so
never ending.
Yeah, to me, it's felt like a lot of unfairness. It's like, I think it's unfair to equate any Black person casting the ballot to say they have to shoulder all the weight of American imperialism or American colonialism or all of the bad international policies that America has, especially because politically, socially, economically, our freedom and life is being threatened here domestically. So it makes it where it's hard to chew that bubble gum and walk at the same time. For me, because my politics is so heavy educational and so heavy political, I am emotionally, spiritually, physically exhausted and is ready for it to be over. But also, I have a lot of fear in the uncertainty. I know that there's a lot of uncertainty around this election season and around, you know, what policies is going to get passed and around who going to win. And regardless of who wins, there's still a lot of uncertainty. And I think that
Yeah.
has, for me, given me a lot of anxiety and made it where I've almost in some instances felt like defeated or hopeless. I've been trying to be very mindful of taking time for myself and making it where I don't get too caught up in what's happening on the timeline and what's being demanded of me to produce on the timeline. But I will say that I am very like weary. I'm tired. I'm stretched out. You know what I'm saying? I got anxiety
Yeah.
about this
My
next
God,
season.
I feel like this is the three of us have turned this into like a group therapy session. Like, but you guys
We
are.
needed it.
Wait, obviously, like, but this has been how I felt. It's like so refreshing to hear you guys
Yeah.
say all of this because this is how I felt, and at the same time, I love elections. My parents are from a country in which the elections are a sham. Like, this is fucking great that we get to do this. It's great. First of all, I'm also from a country where like no one can have this conversation publicly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I appreciate these things so hard. And I'm so fucking tired, you know. So like all of these things are true.
I mean, as shout out to my therapist because she loves to tell me many things can be true. I'm crying at one thing, but I'm also like, but things are going good, but also the world. And it's like you have to be able to hold space for all of it. And I think, you know, shout out to you, Negin, for creating a space where we can talk about these things.
Yeah, thank you, Negin. Thank you.
Because as scary and overwhelming as it is, I do take solace in the fact that I'm not the only one feeling this way. And I'm sure your listeners are feeling the same, where it's like you almost feel personally, sometimes I feel embarrassed to admit it because I'm like, I'm comfortable. Like, you know,
like I'm a fucking comedian.
I have 2 parking spots and a washer and dryer. And I have a very comfortable life. And I'm like, oh, I'm stressed. But, you know, giving voice to that is worthwhile. And I don't think there's anything wrong with acknowledging the realities of like this challenging time, because to Conscious's point, no matter who wins, there's still going to be work to do. And you know, I am claiming a victory for Kamala Harris, but that doesn't mean that Donald Trump's not going to show his whole ass. Like we remember what happened January 6th, and like that was bonkers to watch. And I don't want a repeat of that, but I feel anxious about like, how are those people going to act when he loses? I don't know.
In the back, we're echoing Franchesca right now. Don't forget about that historical amount of federal judges that was appointed by MAGA Trump supporters, and don't forget about that stacked Supreme Court that's been stacked by Donald Trump. So if you think VP Kamala Harris gonna win and there'd be no residual backlash, you smoking dope and dog food. You crazy as hell.
First of all, I'm going to wrap this segment up by saying that one of the things that experts say, if you experience fall anxiety, and we're experiencing a very heavily politically tinged fall anxiety, if you experience it, one of the best things to do is to acknowledge your feelings, which I feel like we fucking nailed it today in this segment. We acknowledged the fuck out of these feelings. So thank you so much for doing that with me. All right, that, my friends, is the end of the show. I feel so good. I feel so good talking to you guys. Thanks so much for joining me. And what I really want is for the people of Fake the Nation to be able to follow you and all of the wonderful things that you do. Conscious, where do they do that?
Yeah, you can follow me at The Consciously on all social media platforms. Also, I do workshop facilitations, diversity and inclusion, keynote speaking, hosting. You can find that at theconsciously.com. or just any platform you see me on, be able to go to that link in the bio, and that's how you get in touch with me and my team. Also, Black History for Real podcast is available. We've got a new episode to come out every single Monday. We keep it real, we keep it raw, we keep it rapping. We give you stories about Black figures you probably never heard of before. Or if you heard them, we go a little bit more in depth than you used to.
I love that. Go, guys, follow him. You can already tell from this podcast that following him is going to yield you great, great benefits. Francesca, where do they follow you?
Yeah, you can find me across social media at Chescaligh, CHESCALEIGH. And I have to say, Conscious really teed us up to invite the listeners to check out Black History for Real. We are so proud of this show. It's not your typical history podcast. It's a storytelling podcast. So you might get to hear Conscious and I playing different characters. There's soundscapes. They're really building the world. And then it's peppered in with conversation. And it's just so enlightening. It's been so eye-opening and such an incredible experience. And getting to develop and foster this friendship with Conscious has been really wonderful. So please check out the show wherever you get your favorite podcast, or you can listen early and ad-free on the Wondery Plus app.
Oh my gosh, folks, this is the new podcast for you.
And we're ready for our next topic. we had Lilah Raptopoulos and Jesse Thorne in to discuss a weird situation with a couple. It's a fun one. Check it out.
And next topic. This week we heard about some interesting couples drama, and we couldn't help but talk about it. So to do just that, I'm joined by the host of the Life and Art podcast at the Financial Times and the maven of cultural analysis herself. It's Lilah Raptopoulos. Hey, Lilah.
Hi, Negin.
We are also joined by journalist and host of the White Devil. Sorry, we are also joined by journalist and host of the White Devil podcast. It is the wonderfully delightful Josh Dean. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Negin.
Okay, so let me bring you both up to speed with this little story we found in the advice column of the Washington Post. This writer writes, earlier this week, I overheard my husband say some really negative, hurtful things about me. I thought he was on a work call, but realized he was actually talking with his therapist. I was so surprised. It took me a little while to understand what I was hearing and hightail it to another area of the house. Now I can't unhear what he said, and I'm not sure how to move forward. I know what I heard wasn't meant for me and was just a snippet of a much larger conversation, but how do I move on since it's not something I can address with him directly? We have young kids and life is busy and stressful, and I thought we were okay relationship-wise. Apparently not, and I'm not sure how much longer I can act like we're fine with his words in my head. Oh my God, Josh. What does she do?
Boy.
I know. It's so bad. It hits
I feel
you,
so bad
right?
for both of these people.
I know.
Right? Because
Bad.
it's like we all know that the people we love the most say things about us that we would not want to hear. You know, and whether it's to your therapist or to friends or to parents, or like, it just, we all complain about each other. Like, I mean, I love my kids more than anything, and I complain about them to my wife all the time, including things that if they were like had their ear at the door, I would be horrified, right? Like, so it's, you know, you think you're in a safe space, and then I don't know, it's like a nightmare scenario. I almost don't know how to process this.
It's funny you should mention you say things all the time. I do stand up about my husband and my child.
Okay.
That is like very unflattering. Oh, I mean, it's funny because she's too young to hear it. Hopefully she fucking never will. I don't know. But it's
What
like,
does he do? Does he just not listen to your stand-up?
the thing is, he's like a trained improv comic. So he always is like, go for the joke. And he'll even come to me and be like, oh, I was like, you know, listening to John Mayer earlier all day long. You should do something with that. Like he'll like tell me, he's like a black man listening to John Mayer, like, you know, her body is a wonderland. You know what I mean? Like all day. And you're just, and there's something funny in that. And he's like, maybe you can do something with it. Like, he's like, make fun of me. It's fucking fine. I love it. It's okay. Like
cute.
It's your job. It's your job. I'm going to help you do that job. So he's completely fine. I dated a guy a few before him that was really not okay. And I was like, oh, you shouldn't be dating a stand-up comedian because what else are we going to fucking talk about? But yeah, and so there are definitely people who can't handle it. And then there are, I don't know. I do sometimes wonder if my kid will somehow dig up clips of me talking about her later on in life. She probably
and play them
won't.
for her therapist.
Right.
She'll be like, I have to admit, pretty good.
Yeah. I was a real dick when I was 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. I don't know. Lilah, what do you think?
I actually, the thing I came away with is just the idea that she wouldn't bring it up immediately is just bonkers to me. That would be the first. I would just like within 12 hours. I'm also incapable of holding anything in with my partner, so I'm kind of like, you know, if I get him a gift, I'm like, I got you something and I really want to give it to you, and I, you know, can't hold it in. But so I think within 12 hours I'd be like, I overheard it and it was
right,
you know?
right.
So yeah, so my advice would be probably what the response was, which is like, you got to talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, do you think you could hear something really bad and like that was said in this context and get over it?
It depends. I feel like, I mean, maybe I'm naive, but I feel like most of the things that my wife would complain to a therapist or her friends about are things that, if I was being honest with myself, wouldn't be a huge surprise, right? It might be things that you don't like about yourself or things that you hope to. But if it was truly shocking, if it was something where it's like, oh my God, like it made you question whether that person, you know, in the case of a partner, like truly loved you, I guess then it would be something you probably couldn't get over. If it's more like pointing out flaws that you probably are aware of on some level, it feels like you can get over it. But I agree with Lilah. I think you got to talk about it, because otherwise it's going to fester, and it's going to come out like in the worst possible moment, like in the middle of a big fight, and you're going to say, and you know what? Here's how I actually feel about you, right? If you here's what you would hear if you heard me talking to my therapist.
I think you're right, Josh. Like if something, if there was something that you thought that your partner thought was cute about you, actually was a thing that they just like thought was disgusting or horrible, that would be very different than like them sort of making fun of something about you that maybe is kind of annoying.
Right.
I mean, I think like one of the things too that I often think about, like I think about this woman, this friend of mine who was telling me about her parents, and she was like, when I was little, my mom hated my dad. It was a bad marriage. And but then it changed because my mom decided to like love my dad for all the for all of those qualities that she thought were annoying. She just changed her mind.
No, that's
and now they have like, and it's funny because I've met these parents and they're like lovely, cute, like, you know, they've been together for like 40 years, you know what I mean? And I always think about that because it's like an attitude adjustment for, I think for a lot of people, you know, that something annoying, or is it just an endearing thing that your partner does?
Yeah.
You know? And, I guess this is more a note for the guy, for the husband in this letter. But just like, I don't know, maybe there's, and also for her, just like, just because someone is annoyed by something now doesn't mean they will forever be annoyed, because attitudes can change. Like,
I feel like there's like a TED talk and a best-selling book in that. It's like, I learned to love the things I hated.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know how to do that exactly, but if it can be taught, then that's amazing, right?
That's true.
Like,
yeah. You know, sorry to interrupt.
No,
go.
I was going to say that my husband does this a little bit because it takes me a minute to leave the apartment, you know, so I'll be like, oh, I forgot this. Oh, I forgot that. And he just sort of like laughs. Like, he's just like, it's like my wife's being a cutie. She can't, you know, and it's funny because I had ex-boyfriends that really hated that.
Yeah.
Like that I would forget something and I walk back in, you know what I mean? And I don't want to like overstate it. It's not like I do it every fucking time, but I do it enough that it's like noticeable. But I always thought, oh, that's cute. Like, he's decided that it's cute and not the fucking worst. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I did sympathize with her. I didn't. You don't really like the idea. You wouldn't really want your partner to be. You wouldn't really want your partner to be talking about you in a way that like really was hurtful. But it's just kind of, it's hard to know what will be hurtful. But this reminded me of when I was a preteen, when like cell phones had just been invented and we had cell phones, and my friend butt dialed me, and I answered it, and I was like, what is that? What's going on? Oh, I can hear them. And she was talking shit about me behind my back. And I don't know. It was you know, she thinks she's so great. It was like this kind of like, and then she did this and she flirted with him, and I don't really remember, but I remember being like, oh my God, this is me. She's talking about me.
Did you confront her?
Yeah. And again, I can't hold it in immediately. Like the next day I was like, I heard what you said. And, I think we both kind of like, she's like, I was just hurt, and, you know, and I was
right.
You know,
and did you guys get over it?
We got over it. Yeah, we both cried a little, got over it.
Yeah,
it ended up being sweet, but it was
my version of that story is early in my career. I worked at a magazine, and I was really upset with my boss, and I sent an email to my closest coworker complaining about that boss in very colorful terms, and then I think you can guess where this is going. I sent it to the boss instead.
Oh no.
And so, like, within like 30 seconds, my phone rings, and he says, "Could you step in here for a second?" And then, of course, right then, I realized what I had done, and I was like, "I'm fucking fired. I'm like completely done." And I went in, and of course, I was a very junior employee, and he was the editor of the magazine, and he was like almost. His voice was kind of cracking because he was like so legitimately hurt that I had said it. And I was like, obviously I didn't mean it. I was really upset. Like, and then like we talked for 5 minutes, and by the end, and I will forever thank him for this. He was like, you know what? I've sent emails like that to people like numerous times in my career, especially about my bosses. And I was like, oh, thank God, because I thought I was getting fired. And it's like we have feelings about people that we.
And then was the working relationship like normal after?
Totally fine. Yeah, totally fine. In fact, maybe even better in a way, because I'm not, like, especially in that power dynamic where it's like I probably didn't know how much of an asshole or not an asshole he was, and then I felt like all right, that's a real human being who understands,
right?
Because definitely that's not how every boss would react, right? You can imagine scenarios that don't end that way.
Wow, I love those stories. I'm a little jealous. I haven't gotten a butt dial. All the butt dials I've gotten have just been like, you know what I mean? There's like nothing interesting that happens in the butt dial, and so I'm just like, God damn it! Can you please talk shit about me so I have a story here?
Fun.
Folks, okay. That is the end of the show. What a wonderful conversation. I loved having you guys on. And what I would love is for the people of Fake the Nation to be able to find all of the wonderful things that you do. Lilah, where do they find you?
Sure. So I host the Financial Times' Arts and Culture podcast, Life and Art. So you can search Life and Art wherever you listen to podcasts. We talk about, we bring on critics in pop music, food, books, history, film, art, and that sort of thing to make sense of culture. Negin, you were on once. It was a total delight. And so you can also find me on Instagram at Lilah Raptopoulos.
Josh, where do they find you?
Well, my latest show, White Devil, which is a 12-part narrative limited series about a very bizarre story that starts in Belize and sort of takes me around the world. You can find it by searching White Devil in your favorite podcast app, or my company, Campside Media, which makes a lot of narrative limited series, all of which I'm proud of. We are campsidemedia.com. And on all the socials, I am at Josh Dean 66 because at one point Yahoo randomly assigned me that email, and it's forever stuck with me.
I can't wait to get to sink my teeth into White Devil because I am like in the market for a juicy pod to keep me going through some travel. So so excited for that. And that's the end of the show. Thanks everyone for listening. I hope you had a great Labor Day weekend. I want to thank everyone who makes this show a possibility. That's our wonderful producer, Andrew McGuire. Our fantastic theme music was written by Gaby Alter. Thanks to everyone at HeadGum. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach us at fakethenationpodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to go to NeginFarsad.com for all of your t-shirt needs. Go to patreon.com/NeginFarsad to support the show. And otherwise, and then I will be in Florida doing some dates the upcoming weekend. So go to NeginFarsad.com to look up those dates as well. If you're in Florida or Atlanta, I'd love to see you there. Otherwise, we'll be back in your earballs next week.
That was a HeadGum podcast.